Was Jesus in the tomb 3 days and 3 nights or not? In Luke chapter 18, verses 31 through 33, Jesus predicts his death. It says, Jesus took the 12 aside and told them, "We are going up to Jerusalem, and everything that is written by the prophets about the Son of Man will be fulfilled. He will be handed over to the Gentiles. They will mock him, insult him, spit on him, flog him, and kill him. On the third day, he will rise again." To the casual reader, this doesn't seem to happen. Christians celebrate Good Friday when Jesus died and was buried, and we celebrate his resurrection on Easter Sunday, 2 days later. A full 3 days and 3 nights doesn't go by, and many students I have taught over the years have noticed this. This confusion comes from mixing familiar scriptures with our holiday traditions. There are clues hiding in plain sight that can help us. First, you need to know that there are 2 kinds of Sabbaths mentioned in these crucifixion passages. Let's start with the one we're very familiar with, the weekly Sabbath. In Genesis chapter 1, verses 3 through 23, after each creation day, the passages end with, "And there was evening and there was morning the first day. And there was evening and there was morning the second day. And there was evening and there was morning the third day," and so on. An interesting note here is that our calendar days are from sunrise to sunset on the same day. God's calendar days are from sunset one day to sunset the next day. In Exodus chapter 20, verses 8 through 11, this describes the work week that we're familiar with. God commands the Israelites to work 6 days and rest on the 7th. This is the weekly Sabbath. The other Sabbath in our Bible event is the annual Sabbath. Let's have a flashback to last week's lesson. In Luke chapter 2, verse 41, 12-year-old Jesus and his parents are traveling to Jerusalem for the annual Passover celebration. Now notice that this verse begins with "every year." So this is an annual event. As an adult, Jesus is now in Jerusalem celebrating the annual Passover before he dies on the cross. God gave instructions for every celebration the Israelites held. The instructions for the annual Passover are found in Leviticus chapter 23, verses 4 through 8. An important detail to see is that the annual Passover is held on the 14th day of the first month. To keep this conversation simple, let's just call this January 14th. As you may have noticed, dates have the annoying tendency to move around on our calendar days from year to year. My birthday was on a Thursday this year, but last year it was on a Tuesday. If the annual Passover is held on a particular date, then it doesn't always land on the day that we call Good Friday. So now the question is, on what day did the crucifixion events begin? The women tending to Jesus' body after he died on the cross gives us clues. I won't bore you with the details, but feel free to rewind and pause when you have time. The verses are provided. When all the verses are put together and everything's reverse engineered, the crucifixion events begin on a Tuesday evening. Jesus eats a Passover meal with his disciples, and then he establishes the Lord's Supper. Later on that evening, he's betrayed, arrested, and then illegally tried before the high priest. On Wednesday, during the day, Jesus is brought before Pilate, he's crucified, and then he dies somewhere around 3 in the afternoon. Wednesday towards the evening, this is the annual preparation day. Jesus' body was hurried to the tomb before sunset. On Thursday, the high Sabbath day, this is the first day of the Feast of Unleavened Bread, and it's described in our Bible event as the day after the day of preparation. The verses pertaining to this are below. Now we come to Thursday sunset. Wednesday night and the daylight portion of Thursday is day 1 of Jesus being in the tomb. On Friday, the high day annual Sabbath is passed. The women go out and they buy and prepare spices for Jesus' body before resting on the weekly Sabbath day, which was going to begin at sunset. Now we come to Friday at sunset. Thursday night and the daylight portion of Friday is day 2 of Jesus being in the tomb. Saturday comes and the women rest because this is the weekly Sabbath. Now we come to sunset that night, and Friday night and the daylight portion of Saturday is day 3 of Jesus being in the tomb. Since God's calendar days are from sunset to sunset, sunset on Saturday evening is actually Sunday. So a full 3 days and 3 nights have passed, and sometime around sunset on Saturday, Jesus rose. On Sunday morning, while it is still dark, the women arrive with the prepared spices, and they discover that Jesus has risen. Mind blown, drop the mic. God's word is trustworthy, and Jesus did exactly what he said he would do.